Hello, everybody. As Maria said, we're going to talk about maritime security. So for those of you who don't know who we are one of the biggest private maritime security companies in the world. And our exposure to maritime security and our experience comes from our current status of 180 ships per month in the Indian Ocean and about 20 operations per month in West Africa. So we have a lot of teams out there on the water. We have a lot of intelligence gathering capabilities, and we pretty much know what we're talking about. First of all, though, let's look at what security is. So the definition is the state of being free from danger or threat, which I guess is a good thing. We're going to talk about only the Indian Ocean high-risk area and the Gulf of Guinea high-risk area. This is the global incident map for the past year. So as you see, there is plenty of activity going on in various regions in the world. However, focusing on the Indian Ocean, in the past year, we've had 42 reported incidents, out of which 17 were attacks. And by attack, we mean a small craft approaching a merchant vessel and pretty much firing upon it. In the Indian Ocean, of course, most of the activity is happening around the Bab el-Mandeb, which is the choke point between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, and there are a number of reasons behind it. It's not just piracy or acts of piracy or intended piracy, but it's also terrorism and, well, a lot of smuggling going on in that region. Looking at two specific incidents, we will see to the left the Chios Freedom that was attacked by 3 skiffs with 7 people on board, and they actually fired at the vessel. However, the Chios Freedom had an armed security team on board, which kept the vessel safe. On the right, we see the Abqaiq, which is an Bahri vessel, Saudi interests. Allegedly, it was attacked by Houthi rebels that fired a missile at it. Okay, there was an armed security team on board this ship as well. They couldn't do much, but at least the ship was safe. This is the latest incident we've had in the Indian Ocean, and it's very interesting because it's happened in a position where most people will think it's safe. So the KSL Sydney was attacked 340 nautical miles east of Mogadishu in the Somali Basin. Safe sailing for that body of water is 200 to 250 nautical miles from the coast. There are many CSOs that will not engage security for vessels transiting, for example, from South Africa to the Persian Gulf because they consider this area to be not threatening. However, the KSL Sydney was attacked, and it was only saved because it had an armed security team on board. In the Indian Ocean right now, Somali-based piracy is what most people will say dormant, but it's not extinct. It's still there. The Yemen conflict is overspilling into the maritime domain. There are a lot of smuggling groups that are taking opportunity of this state of lawlessness in that body of water and are trafficking illegal goods and people over the sea. EU NAVFOR, which is the only military force, naval force in that region mandated specifically for anti-piracy duties, currently has only 2 vessels. So as you can understand, this is not enough. The coalition warships are mostly engaged in the Yemen conflict and will not take too much notice of piracy. And conditions in Somalia, mostly south-central, have not changed and are conducive to pirate action groups' operations. Somaliland and Puntland to the north are much better in regards to security, but the threat still remains. Yeah, I like these pictures because they just remind us of what happens to a ship when it's attacked. So this vessel had received RPG rounds. This is a picture I've taken. No, it's not. You can find it on the internet. Anyway, but I've seen things like this very often. So this is something that we don't like to see, but it's still out there. The crew member to the right was unlucky because his ship was hijacked, but he was lucky because the only piece of shrapnel he received was to the chest, so minor injury. And when pirates take over a vessel, it becomes really ugly. I want you to pay notice, the top slide that shows that the razor wire did not adequately protect the vessel. So hardening measures are good, best management practices are fantastic, but they are the minimum that one can do. There is a lot more you can do to protect the vessel. These are some people that my boss had arrested when he was commanding EU NAVFOR at Atlanta. They don't like him. And wrapping up the Indian Ocean, because I want to move on to the Gulf of Guinea. There are many players in the region, but it's generally understood that the tide changed when armed security teams were deployed on ships. There has never been a ship taken that has an armed security team on board. And as an industry and as a company, we take pride in making sure that all our mariners are free to do their job and that they all go home safe and sound. But there are some bad apples amongst our crowds. You need to be careful who you contract. So you need to look for quality and compliance. It's not just certificates and permits, it's also word of mouth. So talk amongst yourselves and you'll understand who the good guys are. Right, the Gulf of Guinea now. 144 reported incidents in the past year, a lot more that go unreported, out of which 29 have been attacks where vessels have been fired upon, and another 30 have been successful hijackings. So it's pretty active there. Most of the action happens in eastern Nigeria, of course, oil-producing region, and other reasons for it, but this is where we see most of the activity. And looking at some examples, this is the Densa whale that was saved by an escort vessel. So the Densa whale had an armed security escort vessel alongside, and it was attacked, but the escort vessel saved the day. The vessel was safe. These two vessels were not that lucky. They were hijacked. The Pomeranian Sky is a container vessel, and the reason I've chosen this one is to make everybody understand that it's not only tankers or low and slow vessels that are at risk, it's also high and fast ones. So from the Pomeranian Sky, 11 people were taken from the ship. The Pantelena is not so recent, it's back in August, but it's very interesting because it's the first cargo theft incident we've had in a very long time. Owners lost communication with the vessel reappeared 2 weeks later, crew was unharmed, however the entire cargo was missing, and this was oil product. If we single out the hijackings, you'll see that this is the incident map. It's of particular interest to see the two marks at the south end, and we're going to look at them closer. This was one pirate action group that operated over 48 hours and managed to do this much damage. 3 vessels hijacked, 15 crew kidnapped. Sorry, I'll just go back once. The most southern incidents we've seen are the ones you see just off Point Noir. And from our intelligence, we've gathered that Nigerians, together with Somalis, have grouped up and are exporting their techniques and expertise. So they're not just operating in Nigeria or Benin, which is right next. Now they've gone into the Democratic Republic of Congo, and also we have information that they're moving into Cameroon. So the high-risk area should expand. I've been asked this too many times, is there a solution for West Africa? In reality, there's no solution to what's happening, but there is a solution to the problem individually. So if you evaluate risk properly, and if you take the right mitigation measures, if you contract a legitimate security provider and build a relationship with that security provider, then you will also be able to understand, as managers, operators, or owners of vessels, the risk and the operating environment in West Africa. And of course, what you need to do to keep your vessels and people safe. The future is not different than the past, especially and specifically for Nigeria. The situation on the ground has not changed. Corruption, poverty, criminality are all prevalent in West Africa, especially in Nigeria. And wherever there are those elements, there's also the opportunity. So we don't see anything changing in Nigeria. In 2019, in February, we have federal elections, and some things are going to happen. Usually, once we approach federal elections, we see a lot of activity because the various powerhouses are trying to affect each other, and they do this by using their militants. And this has to do with the offshore oil and gas industry, and any foreign vessels going into Nigeria. It's not just ships that need security. We were lucky enough to support the largest FLNG project the world has ever seen in a totally different area of the world. This was from South Korea to Western Australia. So security is required wherever there is the need. This is the FPSO Egina, the largest FPSO delivered and operating in Nigeria. It receives daily threats from the Niger Delta Avengers, which happen to be the most active militant group in Nigeria. However, not only did it arrive and position itself on its operating field, but it's operating daily successfully without a single hiccup, again because of the security it receives. The key is not to allow yourselves, your business, your seafarers, your vessels, etc., and so forth, to be a victim. So if you give the opportunity or show a weak spot, then most probably you're going to face problems. However, there is hope. Thank you very much for your attention.